Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jocelyn, and for today's topic, I am going to provide you the latest quarantine requirements in the Philippines. If you are a fully vaccinated individual, whether you have a booster shot or not, you don't need to quarantine and you don't need a negative pre-departure test. I repeat, all fully vaccinated passengers do not need antigen test and do not need to quarantine in the Philippines. The Philippine government will consider you a fully vaccinated individual for COVID-19 more than or equal to 2 weeks after having received the second dose in a two-dose series, or more than or equal to 2 weeks after having received a single-dose vaccine. Here are the acceptable COVID vaccines in the Philippines: BioNTech Pfizer, Convidecia, Covaxin, Epivac Corona, Johnson Vaccine, Moderna, Novavax, Oxford AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Comirnaty, Sinopharm, Sinovac, Sputnik Light, and Sputnik 5. There was a resolution number 2 issued by the Interagency Task Force in the Philippines. So I'm going to explain to you in detail the entry requirements for all passengers, whether you are Filipino or non-Filipino. This was actually issued on October 4, 2022. And it will be effective November 2 of 2022. For fully vaccinated individuals, whether you have a booster shot or not, pre-departure testing is no longer required. This is a big change from the previous entry requirement that you will have to have a booster shot for you to waive pre-departure negative test. But you must comply with the requirement of being a fully vaccinated individual. So for all unvaccinated passengers going to Philippines moving forward, only negative antigen tests taken within 24 hours prior to departure or upon arrival will be required for all unvaccinated passengers. Now, who needs to present the antigen test? All Filipinos and non-Filipinos 15 years old and older must have a negative antigen test. If you are unvaccinated and you did not provide a negative antigen test 24 hours prior to flying, you will be required to take an antigen test upon arrival in the Philippines. There are no exceptions, so only those 15 years old and older will need a negative antigen test. However, if you test positive upon arrival, facility-based quarantine will still be observed per Department of Health rules. Here are the specific requirements for the negative antigen test for unvaccinated passengers, and this is based on IATF Resolution number 168. So the requirement is that either you must have a remotely supervised or laboratory-based rapid antigen negative test result, and this antigen test must be administered and certified by a healthcare facility, laboratory, clinic, or pharmacy or similar establishment. Also, the negative test must be taken within 24 hours prior to the date and time of departure from the country of origin or first port of embarkation in a continuous travel to Philippines, excluding layovers, provided that he or she has not left the airport premises or has not been admitted into another country during such layover. Now, who needs a negative antigen test? First, if you are unvaccinated. Also, if you are partially vaccinated, or if you're vaccinated but cannot be validated or verified. Also, if you have signs and symptoms of COVID, or if you're a minor and the parent or guardian is unvaccinated, partially vaccinated, or have signs or symptoms of COVID. There is a great possibility that all these passengers will need a negative antigen test. Also, if you're fully vaccinated but your last dose was administered less than 14 days from the date of your travel to the Philippines. Now, who needs to quarantine in the Philippines? If you are an unvaccinated passenger, whether Filipino or non-Filipino, and you are 15 years and older, if you don't have a negative antigen test before traveling in the Philippines, you will have to take the antigen test upon arrival. If you are found positive, you will have to abide by the quarantine rules in the Philippines. Now, what are the quarantine requirements in the Philippines for those who were found positive for COVID? What are the quarantine and isolation protocols? The latest COVID isolation rules in the Philippines for both vaccinated or fully vaccinated or partially vaccinated or unvaccinated. So there are two categories. First, quarantine if you are a close contact, 5 days for fully vaccinated and 14 days for partially vaccinated or unvaccinated. Please take note there will be strict observance of health protocols up to 14 days or monitoring up to 14 days. The rules are different if you are COVID positive and you must isolate. Here are the rules for fully vaccinated. First, you must undergo 7 days of isolation from onset of symptoms or positive test. If you are partially vaccinated or unvaccinated, it will be 10 days of isolation from onset of symptoms or positive test. Only unvaccinated or partially vaccinated individuals 15 years old and older will need a negative antigen test before traveling or upon arrival. So if you arrive in the Philippines and you don't have a negative antigen test, you will be tested. And once you are found positive, you will have to abide by the current quarantine rules per the Department of Health guidelines. If you are fully vaccinated without a booster shot, you don't need to quarantine and you don't need a negative antigen test. Let's talk about the minor travelers. What are the current rules for minor travelers? Here's the latest requirement for unvaccinated minors going to Philippines, whether Filipino or non-Filipino. Accompanied minors 14 years and below shall follow the quarantine protocols of parents. So what does it mean? If the parent is unvaccinated, the parent and minor should have a negative antigen test within 24 hours prior to departure or upon arrival. But I would advise both the parent and the minor to get a negative antigen test before flying if both the parent and minor are unvaccinated to avoid quarantine upon arrival in the Philippines if tested positive. For unvaccinated U.S. citizens going to Philippines, here are the latest requirements. You must have a U.S. passport that is valid for at least 6 months. It means that not expiring within the last 6 months before the date of travel. Second, you must have a return or onward ticket not later than 30 days for foreign tourists or foreign spouse traveling alone. No return or onward ticket will be required for those former Filipinos or a foreign spouse or foreign child traveling with a former Filipino or Filipino citizen. The next requirement is that you must have a negative antigen test taken within 24 hours prior to departure from the country of origin or upon arrival in the Philippines. The negative antigen test is only required for 15 years and older. So this is the change from the resolution. Also based on the latest resolution, accompanied minors 14 years and below shall follow the quarantine protocols of parents. Now, what will happen if you are found positive upon arrival in the Philippines? The next requirement is the EARRIVAL card or registration within 72 hours of departure from country of origin or upon arrival in the Philippines. So you must also provide a digital or printed copy of the barcode. The only change is that the EARRIVAL card is no longer mandatory during boarding, so you can still do it upon arrival in the Philippines. Moving on, if you are a former Filipino, you must have an old or valid Philippine passport or authentic or PSA-issued birth certificate. For foreign spouse, authentic marriage certificate if traveling together, or authentic birth certificate for foreign child. In addition, mask wearing will still be required at public transportation, including airplanes. Also, online customs declaration form will still be required for NAIA Terminal 1 passengers. You can still do the paper form if you're unable to do the online customs declaration form. Also, always confirm with airline and check with layover country if unvaccinated foreign national will be allowed to board the plane. If you have any other questions or comments, please post them down below and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you guys for supporting my channel. And if you haven't liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and hit that notification bell. I always welcome new subscribers. Thank you guys for watching. I hope everyone is staying safe and have a great day.